Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros MLB. This is a Leading Off Live special MLB Draft Edition. It is me, Joey P. Joe P's up here with me is the Welsh, and we're here on our Twitch, twitch.tv/fantasypros. That's the place to be, Monday through Friday for Leading Off Live. And, of course, you can always watch on demand on our YouTube channel, Fantasy Pros MLB. Subscribe today so you never miss a moment of fantasy baseball action. And Welsh, a few days ago was the MLB draft, and we are going to start picking it apart. And this is becoming something, more and more important every single year as it passes, because it used to be just the dynasty managers who were interested in the MLB draft for the most part. Back in the day, we went from, oh, these are guys that will be in the big leagues in a couple years, to, oh, these are guys I should stash for the second half, to, oh my God, if I don't know who these guys are, I might be behind in my draft going forward into this season. And knowing the names already who have already graced their presence, or graced us with their presence, I should say, on the MLB stage already. Jack Caglione, Nick Kurtz has been terrific. Cam Smith, Ryan Johnson, Christian Moore, and Chase Burns, all guys from last year's draft, which I thought was a spectacular cast. We went over and over last year. We did this special last season, and I thought this was a class that was incredibly talented. I likened it to the 1986 draft that was just littered with superstar talent. I feel validated because a lot of that talent's already there, and some of that talent is still on the precipice. But this was a much, I would say, younger draft, especially with position players. Not as many college bats at the top, a lot more high school bats, a lot of high school shortstops. And nobody, I don't think, really, I would say the best college hitter in this draft, I wouldn't have put him in the top 10 hitters from last year. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. I mean, this draft lacks college bats, and it had a record-setting shortstops. 14 of the 27 picks were shortstops, which is unheard of. And, also from like a fantasy perspective, it's not great because you're lacking college. So it's going to be, and I was saying this on a CBS broadcast. One of the really telling things is baseball is a repetition game, not just obviously of just swing, but like, you see something, you repeat it. Torpedo bats, everybody's doing it. Mm-hmm. Well, what was last year? Massive success with college players getting to the majors. So you would think, okay, here we go. We're going to have more college players drafted. We're going to have more position players. High school guys are going to get pushed even further than before. It's the exact opposite of what happened. And the reason behind that is because of the talent pool. Clearly, the talent is not remotely close on the college bats to what it was last year. So what was the rub? What was the change? I think you had multiple teams looking at taking deals, and you had teams just saying, screw it, playing high upside, taking that battle. So we're not going to see the same amount of players we saw this year go into making the majors next year. It's not to say that we're not going to see some, because I think the evaluation process and the prospecting buildup process is going quicker and quicker, especially for college base hitters. Even high school guys, they're just getting pushed up to levels faster and faster because they want these guys to the majors. Because like you said, there was a time where it was like, all right, cool, that guy got drafted. See you in 5 years. That's not the case. I think timelines are like, they want to see advanced high school guys in 2 years. You want to see college guys in 1 year. So I thought this class was really weird and interesting, and it was very telling because there was just so little college hitting. And yeah, that college hitting, especially based on what we know now, would rank a lot lower. But I think, the guy I have would probably at best be 7th or 8th at best versus the college hitters that we saw last year. So there's a lot of depth here, but it is lacking the top end meat that we had in 2024's draft.
All right, we're going to break down the first round, and then Welsh is going to go through some of his favorite prospects from the draft and maybe talk about some ETAs. But look, for me at the top, you know how I feel about the college versus the high school guys, especially the college versus high school arms. I am always away from the high school arms. I want nothing to do. So much can happen in development over that time, and the stats are not on their side, basically. There's so many injuries, so many things that happen in those years as they grow, where the hit rate of the high school pitcher has not been very good. The hit rate of the high school hitter is a little bit different, and Ethan Holliday, to me, was the guy that if I had the number one pick, can't miss, that's where I would have gone. I've heard the Corey Seager comp. I actually like the Corey Seager comp. I tend to like to come up with my own, but I think that's kind of spot on. I like him more as a prospect than his brother, to be honest with you. To me, I just think he's going to fill out a little bit more. I think he's got a little bit more of his dad's genetics just physically looking at him as a young player, because I'm old enough to remember his dad when he was a young player. So to me, that's where I would go. Now, this is not a knock on Eli Willits, who's the first pick. And if we can look at the top 10 here, Willits goes first overall to the Nats. To me, if I'm the Nats, though, I'm a team that's got James Wood. I've got a lot of good players here at the precipice of the major leagues. CJ Abrams, another good young player. You hope that you can get Dylan Cruz to turn things around. I would have taken Kade Anderson first if I was them, because Anderson might be able to get you, I would say, I don't know, in the next 2 years potentially, contributing, if not maybe a year and change. And Willits, I think, is still a couple years away. I really like Eli Willits as a player. He's a strong kid, much stronger than I think people realize, and a really good left-handed swing. To me, Ethan Holliday was the, hey, can't miss, I'm taking that kid. So, Welsh, the top 4 here was Eli Willits, and then Tyler Bremmer goes to the Angels. You have Kade Anderson, the number 1 pitcher on a lot of boards, going to Seattle, falling to 3, and then Holliday falling to 4. We'll get to Doyle in just a second, but let's talk about these top 4, how they landed in these spots and what it means for their future. Let's start with Willits at the top.
Yeah, so Willits was a really interesting one because this, in my mind, was clearly an underslot deal. This was them saving some money, not dealing with Scott Boras, and being able to cut a deal for a little bit later, which we did end up finding out that they took some guys later in the draft that were high school that, can be some high value. So Eli Willits is a very good shortstop. I think there's 5 tools in there. I even threw a comparison out that, there might be a Trey Turner in there because the dude stole 46.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, stole 46 bases in high school, high batting average, great contact skills, really good defender. He can do everything. So, in real life, like, I can see what we're doing here. I can see why they would want a player like that. But there's still some power projection, long-term what's going to happen. You also have CJ Abrams that's there. But at the end of the day, like, they didn't have to deal with Scott Boras. I believe he's one of the only clients, non-Scott Boras clients that was out there. And Eli Willits is just a nice, good, complete player. But I would have taken Ethan Holliday at 1. And I think that's where my problem is, and then Jim Bowden agreed with me on this, and I would have said this, is that usually you take a deal because you are going to spend that money or you're going to convince another really good player to fall. That's what they do. They want to spend that. It didn't happen. As a matter of fact, all the guys that you would have tried to make fall to overpay for later, they went. They all went. It was all high school shortstops. So I kind of thought they maybe overplayed their hand a tiny bit. But I like Eli Willits. I think he's a solid player. But it started the kind of chaos of this draft because going in, everybody thought it was Kade Anderson, Liam Doyle. 3 was a little bit of a question, and Ethan Holliday. But taking Eli Willits at 1 kind of set off a weird little cascade of a couple picks here. But, he's the number 2 high school shortstop on my board. Ethan Holliday is number 1. We'll talk about the fantasy side a little bit later in the show where they go on first-year player. But again, solid pick. It's a floor pick in a very scary draft. It was a really nice floor pick for them to build on, but it doesn't help them for the near future. And that's why Kade Anderson would have made a lot of sense as we're going to step into 2 pitchers that are dropping here.
Yeah, Anderson reminds me of almost a Cole Hamels kind of guy. He's got that lefty big curveball. He's got that, very repeatable delivery. This is a lot that I like about Kade Anderson.
I agree. Let me give you a different comp.
Okay.
Max Fried. There's a Max Fried.
Yeah, there's a little Max Fried.
Because he's got a big buckly curveball that he throws. This, by the way, is my favorite landing spot. I thought Kade Anderson dodged a bullet because he didn't go 1, and oh my God, the Angels are on the clock. That's the most terrifying. The Angels, they're not going to develop anybody. They're going to throw you up there. Kade Anderson has got a slew of solid pitches. It's a good fastball. There's some good shape. It's not like an elite fastball like Liam Doyle or anything, but it's a really, really good fastball. At the end of the day, where there might be some developmentally things that they're going to have to end up doing. This is a guy that led Division I in strikeouts. He's got good spin numbers, 30, I think 30-something K minus walk percentage, and he's going to pitching you. He's going to go to Seattle now, where all they have done is properly develop pitchers. And they've got, just a host and a class of guys, whether they're all following track and doing their splitters and stuff, or Brian Wu, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo. It's an incredible class of great.
On and on.
And so this destination works really well. And this is where, again, we'll get into fantasy. The rubber meets the road of like, do you want to invest in pitching? But yes, this is like my favorite destination outside of Holliday for any of these like top picks.
I like the Fried comp too. Like if somewhere in that hybrid between Hamels and Fried, man, if he can land there. And I do think he's going to be a guy that goes quickly through this organization too. I really do. And look, Bremmer's, it's funny, if I gave a comp to Bremmer, and I don't want to stir the pot here, but like he reminds me of Trevor Bauer when he was young a little bit in terms of physically how he throws, in terms of his approach.
Actually, that's interesting you say that. I saw that same thing.
You see that little Trevor Bauer in him?
Oh yeah, I saw that watching video.
Very similar delivery, similar arsenal. He's got a little bit of a fire in him. Hopefully he's got less of a fire in him than Trevor Bauer. But speaking of guys with fire in them, Liam Doyle at 5, another guy with, again, arguably the best fastball, right? He goes to the Cardinals, but Liam Doyle's a kid that has a lot of maturity issues, in my opinion. You watch him pitch. I love a guy who's fiery. Don't get me wrong. I really do. I love a guy who is intense and all that stuff. Liam Doyle, to me, reeks of too much. It reeks of immaturity. It reeks of a little bit more of John Rocker syndrome than it does of Randy Myers syndrome. You know what I mean? I do think he'll be a closer at some point. I don't know if he's going to stick as a starting pitcher, to be honest with you. I just don't know if he's built for it. He might be built as a closer. He has the screw loose. So if you can harness all of that attitude and all of that demeanor, but the fact that he was a college kid and still with the antics on the mound and talking to the opposing coaches and doing all, it's like, bro, you're 20 years old now. Like, stop it. Grow up a little bit. And bad on the Tennessee, manager for not being able to wrangle him. I know he had some other issues too, where he was out of shape and they were able to work with him on that, but that took a lot of doing too. So I did not love this selection here by the Cardinals, to be honest with you. Seth Hernandez, another interesting selection here by the Pirates as they continue to look forward to more pitching for them. I want to say it right. Is it Aiva Arquette? Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, Aiva Arquette.
It is Aiva. Okay. Now, Aiva Arquette, everybody said is the best college bat. That's not a guy that jumped off the page to me. I watched him a ton. Jojo Parker also didn't really jump off the page. Steele Hall, Billy Carlson, all these guys I think are projects. I'll be honest with you. To me, this first round, if you're looking dynasty-wise, Holliday, Anderson, that's where I'm putting my capital behind. Welsh, what did you make of the rest of this top 10 here, 5 through 10?
Yeah, I'll just give you just a couple like quick little anecdotal things. Liam Doyle, best fastball in the draft. He led college baseball in K per 9, 34 K minus walk percentage, 75 grade fastball, a 19 IVB. So that's that vertical break. Throws like high stuff. Got a splitter with big whiff rate. So I actually think he's interesting. He'll be one of the top-ish guys, whether there's maturity or not. Seth Hernandez is one of my favorites, but he's super risky just because like he's a high school pitcher, but he's got probably the best changeup in this entire draft, him or Bremner. They're kind of similar. Bremner's maybe the college's version, but you've got 3 to 4 pitches for Seth Hernandez, and he goes to the Pirates who do really, really well. So that's interesting, but it's risky. Aiva Arquette is the guy I told you I talked with Travis Bazzana about. He lacks some of the upside, but he is like 6'5", 220. He has power. He makes contact. You worry about some of the chase stuff out there. I think at the end of the day, he's still a really solid bet, and he might be a better Colson Montgomery. So I like him. I've got him pretty high. Jojo Parker is probably the most well-balanced of the high school guys that where Eli Willits has a lot of the tools but lacks the power. Jojo Parker has that power, but he doesn't quite have the speed. Ethan Holliday has the power, maybe not the contact, so he's pretty good. I'm not as high on Steele Hall and Billy Carlson. Billy Carlson's A-plus defender. I think his bat lacks. So this is where, when you get into fantasy, things are going to start to unravel compared to where they went in the draft. But yeah, I think Ethan Holliday, Kade Anderson, Eli Willits, Seth Hernandez, like those are like really main targets. And I would frankly say Aiva Arquette. I might move Aiva Arquette down a little bit when we get to first-year player, but as a college bat, like he's a dude. He is a real dude.
Okay.
He's not Nick Kurtz. He's not Jack Caglione.
Nick Kurtz. He's not Caglione. He ain't Cam Smith.
He might be Cam Smith, though. I disagree. I think he could be Cam Smith.
Well, let's respectfully disagree there on that one. But I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying, like, I saw Cam Smith, he jumped off the page to me, and Arquette just hasn't done that.
93.4 average exit velocity, 108 on the 90th percentile, which is a huge, really good number. Pulled the ball in the air, barreled the ball over 30% of the time. One of the best barrel rates in college. Great launch angle. Like, I think he could be Cam Smith. I'm just throwing that out there to people.
All right. There is a guy, though, who did go in the next grouping here that I really like. So let's take a look at the guys here outside the top 10. You have Arnold going to the Athletics. The guy for me here, Witherspoon, interesting pitcher, guy that I think is one to watch. But it's number 20 that I like the most personally, Andrew Fischer. Milwaukee, I think, got themselves a dude here. I love this kid. He hits the ball hard. He's got a major league physique already. He played for Tennessee last year, if you didn't watch any college baseball last year. But, like, this guy hits it, you know it's out. I love that. Left-handed strokes. He's got a ton of power. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if he's going to stick at third base, if that's, like, his long-term thing. But to me, this is, like, you know, you talk about what they look like. I watch Andrew Fischer, and I watched him at Tennessee, and then I watched a lot of highlights of him, you know, trying to get ready for this show in the last couple days. And let me tell you something, dude. That's the guy that I went, wherever this guy lands, I'm going to be investing in fantasy because I do think he's going to rise through the ranks pretty quickly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Fischer and this group here in this next 10 through 20 group and who stood out to you.
Yeah, so Fischer's super interesting. I'm kind of torn on 100% where I want to go with it. Spoiler, he didn't make to my top 15, but I think he's right on the precipice. I think a lot of people like him because he is one of those one of those few college bats. Great bat speed, good power. Data wise in college, he had the best of the first rounders, EV 95 plus. So he had a 62% rate where he was hitting the ball 95 or harder, which is ridiculous. His contact in the zone was around 84%. That's well above average. He also pulled the ball in the air almost more than anybody and had the highest barrel rate. So, I mean, all of those things really do work out. Frankly, talking about it out loud again does make me think that's a guy that you do need to consider pushing even higher.
He is advanced physically. Like, you look at some of these kids, you know, you see the high school kids, for instance, you're like, okay, there's a lot of growing left to do into the frame. You know, he's going to have to put on, you know, 20 pounds of muscle over the next 2 years in order to get to where he needs to be physically to play in the major leagues.
Yeah.
This kid looks like he plays already for the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, you know,
yeah, no,
and not like in a big way where he's like, oh, he's an overweight kid. He is strong. He's got strong lower half. He gets great hip rotation through the baseball. A nice left-handed swing. When like I said, when this guy hits a ball, it stays a hit.
I wish I had his bat speed data. Yeah, I wish I had his bat speed data because it's pretty sick. The rest of these guys, just some quick nuggets. Jamie Arnold is like a spin monster. At one point, he was seen as a first overall pick. He went to the Athletics. He's got a problem. It's a lefty throwing sweepers into righties, so they might have to figure that out. But some people think he might have been one of the steals of the draft. Kyson Witherspoon going to the Boston Red Sox. He has got like 4 highly graded pitches. He's got he's got a weird release point. He doesn't have great extension and maybe some command issues, but his stuff is really great. I'm gonna just give you a preview. Kayson Cunningham to the Diamondbacks, high school shortstop. I'm just throwing it up. He could end up being one of the best in the class. So you're just not Homer aside. Like I loved that before.
I'm not a Diamondback. I don't disagree with you. I'm not a Diamondback stan at all. You know that. I agree with you. I think that's another one where somebody screwed up.
I love this kid. He looks like Jose Ramirez a little but a little bit better body. And a funny story, he was interviewed after being drafted by the Diamondbacks. He said the Diamondbacks worked him out in June, and they had a pitch simulator machine there. And he asked to go against Paul Skeens. In that, he hit some bombs off of Paul Skeens, and he told us that he was on this simulator hitting 114s and 115s max exit velocity. That's ridiculous. That is elite power. So, and that's the question about him because he's got big bat speed. So I really, really love that. Ike Irish, I thought, was also a really great pick at 19. The Baltimore Orioles ended up having one of the best drafts. They got 4 players that I think were top 20 to 25 valued over 37 picks. So those are a couple of the guys that stand out. Again, Kayson Cunningham, Ike Irish, obviously Andrew Fischer, Witherspoon, and Jamie Arnold in that 11 to 20 range.
Yeah, some definite names there, and I agree with you. Witherspoon, Cunningham, those are 2 guys that also stood out to me. All right, let's take a look at the latter part of the first round as well. Xavier Neyens goes first, and then we have all the way down to Jace Laviolette at 27. Gage Wood, who put up a huge performance not that long ago. Was it the 20 strikeout no hitter or something? 19 strikeouts, whatever
Yeah,
it was.
19 strikeout.
Again, I love this guy, competitor. When he went to the Phillies, I went yes, because you talk about a guy in a landing spot in terms of a town that's going to embrace him if he gets there. That sort of, see, Gage Wood has the intensity I love. Whereas if you look a little earlier here, when I go back and talk about Liam Doyle, he has the intensity that worries the hell out of me. And I think there's just it's a different sort of animal. It's a different sort of dude you're dealing with. And intensity is good, but you got to be able to focus it a little bit. I thought the Phillies got a steal here. Not just because of that performance, but when you look at some of the other data that he had, it was all very good there. So they have a bright young future. They've got Painter, they've got Mick Abel, and now Wood coming in this rotation in the years ahead. The Phillies have had some great starting pitching, and they've been able to acquire a bunch of starting pitching, and I thought this was a great job by the Phillies. What other picks stood out to you here in this draft in the latter part?
Yeah, I got a couple. I do just want to say on Gage Wood, I completely agree. The only thing is I took the him going 26 as a health issue because he should have gone higher. His stuff is ridiculous. He had a 45% whiff rate on his fastball, tons of strikes he gets with it, good spin. He's got a great hard curveball, big slider. Lance Brozdowski had compared him as like a Hunter Brown type of comp, but there was some injury worries in there. So this might have meant medicals. So I'm with you on it.
He's a little I would say a little bit stronger. Hunter Brown, not quite as strong.
Bulkier. He's a bulkier guy.
He is a bulkier guy. Yeah. I don't know physically if that's the best comp, but in terms of approach, that's a good comp in terms of approach. He almost comes off as like, when you watch him pitch, he feels like the toughest guy in the locker room. They just like, hey, why don't you go why don't you go pitch, Gage?
Looks like a fullback.
I could do it.
Kind of looks like a fullback.
Yeah, he's built he's absolutely built more like a football player, and he kind of pitches like a football player, which I think is a tremendous thing. Like I said, I think he's a great fit for Philadelphia in the future, but that's another guy that I'd be circling on the dynasty charts here and circling the redraft too. I think he's going to get to the major leagues in a quick fashion. Two
other guys that really stand out that I am high on. Xavier Neyens going to the Houston Astros. He's a high school shortstop. He's going to be a third baseman at the end of the day. Tremendous power, some of the best. We're talking like similar-ish power to Ethan Holliday. He's a feisty kind of dude too. I like the hit tool. I think he's going to thrive there. A lot of people are trying to comp his swing to Jordan Alvarez, but I love Neyens. I think I'm going to be aggressive on him. And Jace Laviolette, that's going to be the most controversial of players here, where people are going to end up ranking him, because this is a guy that was seen as a potential number one overall player, but then he got hurt, and he is this mixture of strikeouts versus big power. I think he's like a baby Cags with the type of power that he's got. He's got ridiculous stuff. If I can pull this up here with some of the data, Laviolette here, low contact rate, but one of the lowest chase rates. So when you're worrying about those strikeouts, that's kind of floating out there. He had an over 50% 95 plus EV. So, he was consistently getting to that 107, almost 108, 90th percentile exit velocity. So that's just really good if you're wondering where it is. The best pull rate of all the guys, almost a 20-degree launch angle. So he is pulling the ball with massive power, which that is going to do really well in Cleveland. We know that little right-handed side in Cleveland, that little wind tunnel that's happened, that's created this new power potential for players. So yes, there's some strikeout issue. There was an injury at the beginning of the year that held him back and why his batting average was down. I think people are going to be really torn on him. I'm very high on him in my first-year player. He fell all the way down to 27, and it's very reminiscent to Chase DeLauder, because DeLauder was an almost first overall pick. He was hurt. Cleveland jumped in on him. I really, really like Chase Laviolette in a weird, bad college class. There is risk with it, but this is going to be one of those where he's the last pick in the first round, the 27 picks, and there's a compensatory, but I'm going to value him a lot higher. So when we get to the fantasy board, you guys are going to see where I differ. But those are two guys that stood out that went late that I have quite high.
I'm where you are with Laviolette, to be honest. A little bit of that Matt Olson kind of thing where he's very still, and then he has almost like that big, long golfy swing when he hits the ball. You know what I mean? When he hits home runs, that you're just like, oh, where'd that come from? So there's like a little like Matt Olson kind of vibe that he gives me when I watch him play.
And also, it's 2 straight years. I just want to point out that Cleveland clearly has something they're targeting. High pull rate fly ball guys, because Travis Bazzana was that. Travis Bazzana pulls the ball like crazy, gets the ball in the air and maximizes to right field as a left-handed hitter. Exact same thing. Number one pull guy, almost 20-degree launch angle, and Laviolette. They've got a system they're working with for guys that are going to be optimized at the major league level. So I think he's kind of like wildly underrated. You might see some fantasy people put him like in the 20s or something like that, simply because of the strikeout worries. I will not.
I'm with you. Look, that's something you can fix and approach, but the upside's there clearly. The power's there clearly. Like I said, the stillness reminds me of Olsen, and then that explosive, almost like golfing swing sometimes where he just gets under one and it just goes for miles. Like,
some think they might have to fix it. Some are out there maybe thinking they have to fix the swing. I'm not sure that they will either.
It's, you know what? It's not long. It's just graceful. You know, I think there's some kids you look at when you watch them, he have a long swing. His is just, he's got, you know, it's just a graceful swing. Like Darryl Strawberry, for instance, like that's a guy that people would say, oh, it's a long swing. It's not a long swing. It's just an incredibly easy, graceful swing. And so, you know, guys with longer arms sometimes just have longer swing paths. It doesn't mean they're not getting to the baseball quickly. Believe me, Darryl Strawberry got to the baseball very quickly. But I think that's something people tend to forget or confuse sometimes when you're watching. There were some kids that I watched in this high school grouping that I thought were, you know, had a long swing that I just think were, you know, not real quick to the baseball. But I want to get to some of Welsh's favorites here. So Welsh, walk us through this next board here. We're going to talk about some of your favorite prospects. Because again, you know, this is real baseball draft here. We're talking fantasy and how they equate. You've got Ethan Holliday up at the top. I could not agree more. I think he's going to get there quickly. And I do think he has the upside even greater than his brother, who's starting to realize some of his potential this year.
So this is my first-year player board, top 15. If you guys are listening on an audio, go to the YouTube if you want to see it. I'll also have an article on FantasyPros up in the next 24 hours where I'm doing some written form. But if you do your first-year player drafts, I put 15 representing a top first round. So these are the top 15 guys. I'm going to list them all out real quick, and then we can pick a couple names. I have Ethan Holliday at 1, Aiva Arquette at 2, Kade Anderson at 3, Seth Hernandez at 4, Eli Willits at 5. I believe that is a tier. Those can all move around. Number 6, Liam Doyle. 7, JoJo Parker. Jace Laviolette at 8. So I mentioned I'm very high on him. Jamie Arnold at 9, and Xavier Neyens is 10. Tyler Bremner, who could be the first guy to the majors, at 11. Kayson Cunningham with the Diamondbacks. I absolutely love him. Gavin Fiends with the Texas Rangers at 13. Ike Irish at 14. And Gavin Keyline at 15. So that's my top 15 board. The thing to remember is these tiers are bigger. There's a whole lot other players that are, you know, like that 15, I think it extends out to probably like 20 more players. Andrew Fischer is a player that I think could jump into there, but I have them blocked into tiers. So I personally think Ethan Holliday is the top pick. I think I've already talked to 2 different people. Chris Clegg likes Eli Willits. Eric Cross likes JoJo Parker. So there's no consensus right now. We're all over the board. I'm going with the power, going with the Colorado bat, and I think it pairs out with the rest of those, that top. So again, that tier 1 is Eli Willits is your safe pick. Holliday is your dream pick. Aiva Arquette's your college proximity pick, but he might lack the upside and he might need to come down a little bit. And then if you like pitching, I wouldn't care if someone took Kade Anderson 1 because the destination is incredible. If you're in a points league, Seth Hernandez might have some of the best stuff. He's just a high school guy. That's that kind of block. Anything you want to hit in that little tier 1 block real quick, or we move on to the next?
Yeah, no, I'd go Holliday 1. I think he's the guy you could build this rebirth of the Rockies around. Like, I honestly do. I think he could be that good. But again, it's going to be a couple years away because he's a high school kid. So I'm looking at a 3-year window for him. But
remember, Jackson Holliday did do it in about a year and a half.
Yeah,
but I don't think he will, but I'm just pointing that out.
It was too soon, and I think there's something to be learned from that. It's like, look, let's not rush it too much a little bit necessarily. Plus, I don't know what's going to be around him. I think the reason the Orioles are rushing is because, well, you know, we can compete, and he can help us compete, and we've got all this other young talent. I don't know what the Rockies have. You know, Tolio, we'll see how he goes. There's a couple other guys that are there intriguing. Anderson's the safest of the two. Like, Anderson's the quickest. He's the safest. It's Seattle. The question is, where does he fit into the rotation? I assume Castillo won't be there sooner than later, and that will be the opening spot, and he will get there. I think it's a good list. The only thing is I think Fischer should be on it, and I'm going to pound the table for him. I like Gage Wood, too. I think both of those guys. And, of course, the Orioles did take another catcher, so we can only assume that Caden Bodine will also be called up this year
Yeah.
before Basayo.
Well, they technically took like 2. Ike Irish played catcher and outfield. So then real quick, if we jump off of it, I want to just get through the rest of these tiers of these guys. Tier 2 is Liam Doyle and JoJo Parker to me. Again, JoJo Parker is another safe, kind of does a little bit of everything bet. Liam Doyle, I know you don't love him, but he should be quick to the majors. It's a really big fastball splitter. Tier 3 opens up. I do have Jace Laviolette as a top 10 pick. For college, I'm betting on the power. I'm not afraid. Jamie Arnold, Xavier Neyens with the power, Tyler Bremner. Tyler Bremner is the one we didn't talk a ton about, but he's got a big fastball, big changeup. I think they don't feel he needs a lot of work, and that's why he could be with the Angels soon. What things really open up is my last guy in this kind of tier 3 range is Kayson Cunningham, who I mentioned, who has got power, contact, doesn't strike out, probably some of the best bat speed of any of these guys. And I think, and by the way, he's a shortstop, not a starting pitcher, which is listed on here, and it's Arizona. But Kayson Cunningham is like full of potential. And I think he might be one of the sneakiest, like having a teens pick of all these guys. And it's not just Arizona. It would have been wherever he would have gone. I liked him. Gavin Fiends is a bunch of power with the Rangers. I know Clegg has got him like top 5. And then you end it with a couple college bats, Ike Irish, whether it's catcher or outfield, really good exit velocities, really solid college bat in a pretty hitter-friendly environment. And Gavin Keyline was mocked many times to the Red Sox. I've got him at shortstop. Or they drafted him as shortstop. I've got him on this list. And the guys that just fell out of it, as you mentioned, you got Andrew Fischer, Kyson Cunningham, a bunch of the high school shortstops. And I think that's the biggest thing that stands out, Joe, is people are going to see, Steele Hall and Daniel Pierce and Billy Carlson. Billy Carlson went 10, and they're not in my top 15, and I'm lower on them. And it's just, I don't know if I feel great about a lot of the upside. But the most important thing out of this is a very evolving process. This is the initial rank set. If you're a psychopath and you're out doing your first year player, because I know some people are doing their first year player like this week, which is absolutely crazy, but this is an evolving process where some of these guys, these high school guys are going to come out here. Some of the college guys are going to get run. Andrew Fischer comes out and just goes to low A and then finishes the year at high A and then goes to the AFL. Guess what? That's going to be like our version of Nick Kurtz this year. He could fly up boards. So understanding the players that could really fly up boards, I think, is also important. Guys like Fischer, guys like Gage Wood, Ethan Conrad is in that list. And there's just a boatload of high school guys for potential. So my last piece here, as I'm going to kind of write in this article, is that I don't think this is a year where you need to have or trade up into a draft. Like if I can get Ethan Holliday, I'm going to take Ethan Holliday in first year player for fantasy. I like him. If I want pitching, I really want to probably focus on Kade Anderson. If I had the 4th or 5th pick, this is a decent year to trade back. If I had picks 11 and 15 and I traded out of 4 or 5, I think I'm getting talent that is on the same general range. If I'm getting Kayson Cunningham and then let's say Andrew Fischer with those 2 picks, and I trade it out, I think you can do it. So acquiring the middle round of picks is important because just because I gave you 15, I'm looking here, I legit think the next 15 to 20 guys could easily be top 10, 15 players. So having as many picks as possible in a depthy draft that lacks this awesome upside for fantasy is just something important to kind of go into. But we'll see how things, materialize and how we get to see some of these guys in the majors. And that's why I also firmly believe you should do your first year player drafts in February next year, just so you've got a much better idea of these guys. Because look at Jack Caglione. Caglione had such a bad rep coming into the draft and then a bad bridge league, and then he became amazing.
If you watch this show, I mean, you knew very well how my love of Jack Caglione last year, and I wasn't hearing any of that noise. And that's what I mean. I tend to push some of that noise away because I think some of that stuff is just a lot of the nonsense that comes in the evaluation process sometimes, where you get a lot of team speak, a lot of agent speak, a lot of nonsense, a lot of this and that. And it's about money and other things. I'm using the eye test. Welsh is using the data. Hopefully we come to a good agreement on some of these quality players. But we want to hear from you. Who's your favorite pick of the 2025 MLB Draft? Drop your comments below. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell till it goes ding. And check out Welsh's work on FantasyPros.com where he breaks down the entire draft. And patience. That's the one thing I would mention here. Patience.
Especially with this class.
Patience with this class. It's not going to be the instant gratification of last year. It's just not going to be. So take a deep breath, enjoy your Dynasty League drafts. And there's a couple guys that I think could be quick risers in the major leagues. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Bye.